And so the United States has to, and hopefully the first thing we do when and if this war is resolved, is detach from Israel, not declare war on Israel or treat Israel as an enemy. They may treat us as an enemy, as they have before. When they tried to sink the USS Liberty, an American naval vessel, a surveillance vessel, they treated us as an enemy. We don't have to treat them as an enemy, however, and we shouldn't. But we should treat them like we treat every other country, as an ally, but with restrictions and reservations and red lines. No, you can't act against our interest. And this distancing should begin with a total end of aid of any kind, military or economic, to Israel.
Tucker Carlson offered a scathing rebuke of the US alliance with Israel now that it's become abundantly clear that Israel is the biggest obstacle to peace in the Middle East, including a temporary 2-week ceasefire, which Trump had announced earlier this week, but is now in jeopardy because Israel can't stop bombing the crap out of Lebanon. Now, Tucker Carlson also called for an end to all aid to Israel. We're going to get back to that in just a second. Cenk, your 2 cents before we get into it.
Yeah, as you're going to see in this story, Israel is obviously the one that's been dragging us into all these wars and conflicts and costing us our allies. And as you'll see later in the program, they're even going to try to end our NATO alliance. But I love that we started this Not Another Dollar campaign right here on the Young Turks in a thing called Operation Hope. And I talked to Tucker Carlson about it, and here we are. He's saying the same thing. Ro Khanna now is saying the same thing. So when you can, please go to notanotherdollar.com and sign that pledge to never vote for anyone who gives another dollar to Israel, and get the whole country on board with this. Anna, tell us the details.
Well, the real question that we're grappling with right now is whether or not the ceasefire, that 2-week ceasefire, is even in place at this moment. Now, the ceasefire was stipulated on Iran opening the Strait of Hormuz, but the Strait of Hormuz has not been opened. Iran had very temporarily opened it and then immediately shut it down again, following word that Israel had carpet bombed Lebanon immediately after the announcement of the ceasefire. So they dropped over 100 bombs in a 10-minute time span, okay, killing 254 people. Mostly civilians, all civilians actually. I haven't heard a single report of a Hezbollah militant being targeted or killed as a result of those attacks. Now, after Israel carried out these strikes against Lebanon, the Iranians came out, and the president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian, said that the upcoming negotiations that Iran is supposed to have with the United States would be meaningless if the ceasefire has no impact on Lebanon. And more importantly, he says that the strikes on Lebanon already have made these negotiations meaningless, although the negotiations will take place this weekend on Saturday. Now, he says that he will not abandon the Lebanese people. The president of Iran and other high-level figures within Iran have said similar things. In an interview with NBC News, though, Trump says that he told Netanyahu to chill out with the bombing of innocent people. But the Israelis weren't told to stop. So I'll give you the exact statement. This is what Trump told NBC News. I spoke with Bibi, and he's going to low-key it. This is the president of the United States. Further, he says, I just think we have to be sort of a little more low-key. By the way, Vance, speaking to reporters in Hungary on Wednesday, used similar rhetoric, saying the Israelis may check themselves a little bit in the assault on Lebanon. But since then, of course, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came out and said, no, there is no ceasefire, full steam ahead. Full speed ahead, I should say. Total clown show. Now, why is Israel calling the shots here? And that's a really important question that everyone in the United States should be asking. Luckily, we have some figures on the right who have been asking this question, including Tucker Carlson. Take a look.
So apparently, getting Israel under control so the United States could save its economy and the lives of its troops was not even on the table. Like, the one thing we know we're not going to do is tell the Israelis to behave. Why can't the United States get its proxy, its client state, its effectively its employee, Israel, under control? Why is that the one thing that's never on the table? That's the question. It's the question that Joe Kent, one of the top US intel officials, asked when he resigned a few weeks ago. We got into this war at the urging of another country, Israel. The war did not go well. Now we can't get out of the war because of the behavior of that same country, Israel. Why?
I think that that's an important question to ask, Cenk. And, it's a question that should have been asked a long time ago. But I guess one of the silver linings, for lack of a better phrase, of the Trump administration is that I don't think he has the capacity to hide things, right? He's a blunt instrument and he just says out loud things that typically aren't said out loud. So as a result, I think more Americans are privy to the malignant relationship that the United States has with Israel. And I say that because Israel drags us into wars. Israel sucks up our resources. As you heard Tucker say earlier, they're really not a friend or an ally when in the past they've intentionally targeted American troops and killed them. USS Liberty is just one example. But another example would be the Americans who have been killed in the West Bank in recent years by Israeli settlers. Not a word from members of our government about that. Curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so look, there's the obvious facts, and then there's how people feel about them and the reaction he gets from the powerful. So the obvious facts are almost all the big lobbies in this country control our Congress completely. So big pharma controls our drug policy 100%, not 98%. That's why we can't negotiate drug prices. That's maniacal, doesn't make any sense. No other country has it. We give oil companies 35 billion in subsidies. Why should Nancy and John in Kansas take money out of their pocket to give it to big oil? Now, mainstream media is in the job of protecting this type of corruption, so they never talk about it. But if you press them on it, a lot of them would say, yeah, of course, the big oil is getting that subsidy. It's not fair, it's because of their lobbying, etc. But when you get to the issue of Israel, and you go, well, it's like any other lobby, one of the giant lobbies in this country. And so when they give to 94% of Congress, they obviously control Congress. They go, what? You disgusting anti-Semite, cancel, right? And I'm not at all exaggerating, and I know I say it in a funny way, but that really is what they scream. And in fact, there was a clip on CNN today where an anchor is talking to some theoretically people on the right and the left. They're like, oh yeah, everybody opposed to Israel, anti-Semites, 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 right?
Don't forget, Noble Mobile saving you a ton of money. So a lot of people are signing up now and beginning to realize, what the hell, why am I paying so much to Verizon and AT&T? So your bill's only $50 a month, but it can actually be less because they give you money back if you don't use your data. So if you're paying more than $50, there's no reason to not switch. It's crazy not to switch because same phone, same number, same contacts, literally nothing changes. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. All right, we'll be right back.
So, and part of that is a coordinated program by people who are pro-Israel to eliminate any of their critics, but most of it is not. Most of it is just people who genuinely think that if you say that Israel controls Congress or the media, that is deeply anti-Semitic and that they should have special rules, different rules than big pharma or big oil. And they genuinely believe that because they're concerned, oh, well, because of the historical context, etc. So what that has done, and why I give you all that context, is that it has set up a situation where people on television, people in national media, politicians are scared to death of criticizing Israel because they know that if they criticize Israel, either by people who are totally disingenuous or people who are being genuine but are wrongly, panicked about this issue, they will be called anti-Semites, and yes, they will be canceled, and their careers will likely be ruined. I mean, that's a thing that has happened 1,000 times. And so yes. that is why Israel has special rules. You can criticize all the other lobbies, but if you criticize Israel, that's the last lobby you'll ever criticize and you'll be done. So that's why we have this asymmetric situation now where Israel can do almost anything. I mean, like, it doesn't get any worse than a genocide. We all saw with our own eyes. I mean, all of Gaza is obliterated. So they're obliterating southern Lebanon as we speak, and yet there's almost no criticism in the national media. There's almost no politician speaking out. Now, when Ro Khanna says not another dollar, that's considered like, oh my God, heresy. In fact, Anna, I don't know if you saw it because it happened right before the show. The DNC held a vote today on whether we should ban AIPAC dark money in our own primaries. And they voted no. And so,
oh my God.
no, they're
amazing.
like, no, AIPAC dark
That's
money's
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah,
right?
That's amazing. Yep.
And
tell me again how the Democrats are better than the Republicans. Oh, yeah. They do the virtue signaling on a few social issues, and that's the only way that they can differentiate themselves from the right. But other than that, how are they different on really important bread and butter issues? How are they different when it comes to neoliberalism, deregulation, allowing for the wealthiest people to dodge, not to pay a lot more in taxes than everyone else, but just to pay their fair share in taxes? Democrats see that type of policy, they jump in it. That's who the Democrats are, the establishment Democrats, the corporate Democrats, the core of the current Democratic Party. And again, going back to what I had said last week and have continued to say this week, if you identify as a Democrat, you have to understand you deserve what you are willing to tolerate. So if you're unable and unwilling to hold your own side accountable, nothing's gonna change. They can rely on your vote. They can rely on your support, knowing that they can act as poorly as they choose. It doesn't matter. They can work against your best interest and know that you'll still vote for them. So I think we need to start holding our own sides accountable, and viciously so.
Yeah, so look, two things about that real quick, the important distinctions. One is, always remember, guys, this is the most important thing, that there's a giant difference between Democratic leadership and politicians and Democratic voters and the left overall.
Yes.
So Democratic voters are deeply dissatisfied with their own leadership. Finally, thank you guys for getting to the point where we've been at for a long, long time. And then the second distinction is, they're different on social issues only because those don't touch the donors. If you don't touch the donors and you don't touch money, then the Democratic politicians are allowed to be good guys. But the minute that you get into issues like big pharma, I mean, it's not like we didn't have Democrats with a lot of power while we've had this oppressive system of not being able to negotiate drug prices, and they did almost nothing about it. And we were told for a long, long time by the MSNBCs of the world and by the propaganda machine in mainstream media that those were Democrats trying so hard, but golly gee, there was just nothing they could do. And that's just not remotely true. Those politicians almost universally sell you out to their donor class. And in this case, it also happens to be Israel. Now, good news, there are good people like Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna who don't take that money and don't sell out. And Bernie is now also introducing legislation to say no more money to Israel. So there are good guys within the Democratic Party, but you gotta look hard for them and you gotta support them. And if somebody tells you to blindly support a corporate Democrat, they're not your friend or ally or colleague. They're trying to make sure that you bow your head to the rich and powerful in this country, every lobby, including AIPAC.
And more importantly, and not more importantly, equally as important is, look, love your fellow American, regardless of how they voted in the past, and show them grace when they wake up to reality that they might have been asleep about previously. A lot of people on the right are waking up to the fact that we have an unhealthy and toxic relationship with Israel. And so don't push them away when they might actually want to work together to accomplish some real change, at least on this very issue. Now, let's move on to the upcoming talks that are supposed to happen, because I do have some concerns about the individuals involved since, they've had a history of sabotaging peace talks. So let's get into it. The United States is still planning to hold peace negotiations with Iran over the weekend, and Fox News did a little reporting about that this morning. Let's take a look at that.
This is what the table is going to look like for what could be JD Vance's biggest assignment yet as vice president. He will be there. Steve Witkoff, the special envoy, will be there. Jared Kushner, another special envoy, will be there on the US side. On the Iran side, you've got the parliament speaker who has been talking to President Trump, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, and then Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister. Officials here are not negotiating in public about which points have to stay, which points have to go to end this military campaign in the Middle East, but it is very notable. Both here at the White House and at the Pentagon, officials are starting to refer to epic fury in the past tense.
Now, part of what makes me concerned is I don't trust Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. I'll get to that in a minute. Let's push that aside for a sec. The other thing that makes me concerned is, look, the United States and Iran can have meetings until the cows come home. The real wild card here, not even much of a wild card because past history will show us exactly how Israel plans to behave, is Israel, right? This is unfortunately a war that Trump got tricked into engaging in on behalf of Israel. And Israel doesn't want it to end, which is why they carpet bombed Lebanon immediately after the 2-week ceasefire was announced. So unless the US government is willing to address the issue of Israel, I just don't think that there's an avenue for peace. The other thing I'll mention is Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are not to be trusted, And if you think that JD Vance will be a better negotiator for peace, I don't know, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I'm not really gonna buy it as long as JD Vance is regurgitating the same lies that we're hearing from the president of the United States. Here's an example.
I actually think that is a reasonable misunderstanding, but neither us nor the Israelis said that was going to be part of the ceasefire.
So that was JD Vance arguing that an end to war in Lebanon was not part of the ceasefire, which is just demonstrably untrue based on the statements that were put out by the Pakistani prime minister and by Trump himself. And then all of a sudden, you see Israel do their carpet bombing, and Trump changes his tune and says, yeah, Lebanon's not included in the ceasefire. Like a little bitch, honestly. Embarrassing. So the biggest obstacle to peace is Israel. I don't trust anyone involved on the US side when it comes to these negotiations. And I'm concerned because, just take a look at Trump and the statements that he puts out. He put this out today. All US ships, aircraft, and military personnel with additional ammunition, weaponry, and anything else that is appropriate and necessary for the lethal prosecution and destruction of an already substantially degraded enemy will remain in place and around Iran until such time as the real agreement reached is fully complied with. If for any reason it is not, which is highly unlikely, then the shooting starts bigger and better and stronger than anyone has ever seen before. I need this man to understand, in order to be an effective leader, you need to understand Iran and Iran's culture. Iran does not respond favorably to these threats. If anything, it discourages them from engaging in peace negotiations. But this is what Trump does. He's a keyboard warrior. And it's only gotten us into more trouble as it pertains to this conflict with Iran. Cenk, take it away.
Yeah. So look, on the issue of Lebanon, it is super clear because Iran had a 10-point plan that Trump kind of alluded to, he definitely alluded to in saying, in announcing the ceasefire. Now, parts of that 10-point plan are never going to happen, like reparations to Iran from America, removing all of our bases in the Gulf. But the Pakistani prime minister's statement online that Trump very much clearly referenced as the point of the ceasefire specifically included Lebanon. It did not include the bases or other ports in that 10-point plan, but it did include not attacking Lebanon. So there's no question that Lebanon was involved in this deal. And of course, Israel doesn't comply with any ceasefires. And so they were like, yeah, so what? America's our dog. We don't listen to America. America listens to us. So we're gonna carpet bomb them anyway, okay? And which they did, and literally. So now, the reason why this particular moment in time is so hard to decipher is because of two opposing factors. Now, normally on the show, we tell you what's gonna happen. We say it with ease, and it almost always happens, right? Why? Because the script is fairly easy to follow. If you know where who has the money, that's the side that's gonna win every time. And in this case, the pro-Israel faction has overwhelming advantage in money. So whatever Israel wants is what we're going to do. But there's a little bit of confusion as to what Israel wants here, and that's what I'm trying to decipher. Because on the one hand, Dropside News is now reporting that our munitions are very low, and so are the Israelis. These are the defensive missiles we've been telling you about the whole time, that they're getting to a perilous moment. And that is part of the reason why Trump had to pause, because if we run out of defensive missiles, we're gonna have to run anyway, because then our ships will be sitting ducks. So, and at a bare minimum, they want to buy some time, the Americans and the Israelis, to reload. Their ability to reload is an open question, right? How effectively can they reload within 2 weeks or whatever time it might be? But they're definitely worried about that. On the other hand, Trump today tells Netanyahu, apparently, according to the reporting, he calls him and says, hey, take it easy on Lebanon. Remember, we're getting our asses handed to us and we're running out of missiles, so don't agitate anymore. And he says, yes, sir, of course, sir. Then in Hebrew, he puts out this statement afterwards, quote, there is no ceasefire in Lebanon. We continue to strike Hezbollah with full force, and we will not stop until we restore our security.
So, Cenk, sorry to interrupt you. In response to that quote from Netanyahu, okay, great. Then in that case, the US will negotiate with Iran directly. No negotiation will include the fate of Israel. We pull all weapons, all support from Israel. Israel is not a partner in peace. Israel is not a real ally. Israel dragged us into this war, which has already been devastating for the United States, devastating for the global economy. So if they want to engage in, I don't know, military suicide, then have at it. But the United States should not be involved. Now, if we had an actual sovereign country led by a government that cares about the American people and the fate and health of the United States above all else, that's what the response would be. Instead, we have leaders who cower, who hang their heads, say, yes, daddy, and do everything that the Israelis want. How is that an ally?
Yeah.
How is this a government that represents us?
No, look, again, if it wasn't for the massive intimidation that pro-Israel forces inside America have in both politics and media, this would be obvious. It'd be obvious to everyone involved. In fact, it's already obvious to overwhelming majority of the country. 60% of the country now has a negative view of Israel. 84% of Democrats have a negative view of Israel. Nevertheless, the Democratic Party is sticking with we love Israel and AIPAC and support them fully. So, and why would you do that? Why would you purposely be on the 16% side rather than the 84% side if you're in the business of politics? You would do that if you're owned. And that's how our politics works. We legalize bribery. Once you legalize bribery, all you'll have is bribery. And all you'll have is corrupt politicians working for the donor class. So at this point, no matter how much Democratic voters and now the top right-wing influencers in the country today, and we'll get to it a little bit later in the program as its own story, but Trump attacking Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Alex Jones, Candace Owens, everyone saying that he doesn't want any of their help. They're all low IQ. He only wants Mark Levin. So that's just political harakiri, right? So he's committing political suicide. And we're all familiar with this on the left because the Democratic Party has been committing political suicide on behalf of Israel and the establishment for a long, long time. So until we get rid of the power of money in politics, we're all going to continue to be frustrated. So that's why notanother.com is about not ever voting for anyone who gives money to Israel, because until you clean out your own parties and you can vote in your own party's primaries to do this, you'll continue to have politicians that support Israel over America. It's a guarantee. It's a guarantee unless you use your political power to end it.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.